days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
All right, so who is your under-the-radar player for the 2025 season, Ant?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's interesting because he's not a young guy. He's been in the league for a little bit, but he is completely flying under the radar. Nobody talks about him. In fact, I think people more so are disappointed in him. Etor Gross-Matos. I think Etor Gross-Matos is an under-the-radar impact player for this season. I think with the ability now, with the fact they added Mikael Williams, they've also added pass rush with Bryce as well, Bryce Huff. He's going to be able to move in. And this was something the 49ers valued last year. If you go look at his Carolina snaps, you paid attention to what he did in Carolina, he won on the inside. He made guards consistently struggle to block him. His lateral quickness combined with his physicality and his length was a real problem for interior offensive linemen. And I think that they see that mold for him again. We've been talking about Mikael Williams moving inside on obvious pass downs. What we haven't been considering is now Etor Gross-Matos is going to be moving inside as well. And remember, Robert Saleh made a decision here. There was a opportunity to cut Etor Gross-Matos instead of Leonard Floyd. It would have been actually the more cost-effective move. Yeah. And they said, you know what? No. And everyone keeps talking about Mikael Williams, reminds them of Buckner and Armstead moving inside. Well, Etor Gross-Matos is in the same build. Now you can put two of those guys on the inside on obvious pass downs, and they can be a real problem for interior offensive linemen. And there's going to be so much focus on everybody else. Etor Gross-Matos is going to be able to eat on the inside. I think he's poised for a big year for the 49ers.
You know, you look at his kind of production. He had 4 sacks last year. Like, okay, that's kind of whatever. But he had 6 tackle for losses and 7 quarterback hits. I don't think that he was very consistent. And you look at his PFF score, one of the lowest of his entire career at a 51.5. But his ankle injury, he did not look right for a while. But now that he doesn't have to be the guy, like you don't have to be the guy or the backup guy. You just get to be a role player. I think that fits really, really well. He's 27 years old. And now he has a carved out role that is just, he has a nice little niche, like you said. And I'm with Cowachipto here. Like everybody keeps talking about Mikael Williams being in that NASCAR package and moving inside, which you can do. I want Etor Gross-Matos doing that. I want Mikael Williams. Look, dude, you're our base defensive end only. Like your first, second down, and we're going to carve that path out until you develop into a pass rusher or be the backup NASCAR guy that moves inside. Allow Bryce Huff to be the outside pass rusher. Allow Etor Gross-Matos to be that 3 tech that rushes in NASCAR situations, and will allow you to blossom. Everybody always talks about Aldon Smith, and I love conversations that are channeled around him, but that coaching staff allowed him to develop. They said, look, you're going to rush the passer and only rush the passer until you can learn how to be a base defensive end. And it wasn't even until the back end of his rookie year where he was starting to get starter quality snaps. Like you allowed him to develop in that. What's your signature trait? Okay, you're a pass rusher, Aldon. You go rush the passer and we'll develop other things as we progress. Do the exact same thing with Mikael's, just flip it. Let him stop the run. And then you allow these guys, Bryce Huff and Etor Gross-Matos, who's 27. He's been in the NFL for a while, 5 years now. They've developed into these players. Allow them to play their role. And you look at that defensive tackle room, they don't have depth. Depth isn't there. You're hoping all these young rookies pan out, and that's great, but that's a lot to ask. Well, make it easier on them. You know Alfred Collins can stop the run. You know CJ West can stop the run. Well, we're going to kick in not 1 but 2 defensive ends, and Etor Gross-Matos and Mikael Williams. Everybody do your job, what you're good at, and we're going to grow together. And so I like that. Now, I do have to say, I am still angry, and this is maybe where I differ from a lot, because I'm a fan first, and who coached, whatever else. Like, I'm not unbiased. And that Seahawks game where Geno Smith did what he did, was because of Etor Gross-Matos. The dude quit in the middle of the play. He quit 2 plays back to back. Now, you can watch on silent tape, and he's saying, get me off the field, get me off the field. And Chris Kusarek's just sleeping. I don't know, it's a hurry up, whatever. They're like, dude, you got to play. He quit. So I was a little shocked they kept him over Leonard Floyd. I think it makes sense whenever you're looking at age, not money, but age. So I don't know. What projection? He had 4 sacks last year, 6 tackle for loss, 7 quarterback hits. Do you think he meets that, exceeds that? What do you see for Etor this year?
Yeah, and I got to give Etor Gross-Matos a little bit of help on that. Is remember that game Nick Bosa got hurt and was out, and they were rotating less defensive ends because they just didn't have the guys, and he did gas 100%. And I wish that they had a different linebacker that could have spied, but they had Devondre Campbell out there. That's another story. It's Nick Sorensen doing Sorensen things. But when you're talking about Etor Gross-Matos, I think his production goes up. He had 4.5 sacks for Carolina. Last year, he had 4 sacks in limited role. You talked about the ankle injury. That set him back a lot. His ankle injury was far worse than Leonard Floyd's, even though they happened pretty much on the same play. And so I do think it's going to go up. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have 6.5 sacks this season, able to make an impact. There's going to be so much focus on Bryce Huff, so much focus on Nick Bosa. That means the offensive line fans out. When that happens, it creates space on the inside where he can go do his work against guards, guys with shorter arms, guys that aren't as quick laterally, and that's going to be a real problem. I think Gross-Matos eats. I think there's an opportunity for him to have a really big season, and he's also, guess what, guys, in a contract year. He's 27 years old. He's got an opportunity to go get another big contract on the open market. He sees the Arden Key type money signs. He sees the Charles Omenihu type money signs in his eyes. He's going to go out there and try to have a big time season.
Yeah, and it was kind of a rarity for the 49ers to put a 2-year deal on him. They usually go get these mercenaries out of their rookie deal that underperformed and say, hey, 1 year, prove it, go make your money. They did 2 for Etor. So this was somebody that they were really high on. I remember him coming out of the draft. I was like, dude, this guy's a perfect fit for the 49ers. It didn't work out. He didn't go to the 49ers, but they were able to bring him in through free agency. I think there's more meat on the bone. And I'm a little bit of he underperformed last year consistent-wise. Numbers are better than I think the tape was consistently. Again, this was a 51 grade PFF. Consistency wasn't there. Can he stay healthy? Can he just play in his role, fulfill that niche? I think that could be a big deal, and I really hope that it pans out. Now, I put out on Twitter, who do you think is the most under-the-radar player this year, for this year only? Renardo Green was the overwhelming most mentioned, which I don't consider him under the radar. Like, the 49ers didn't bring in any outside corner help. Like, they are banking on him being a top-flight starter. Would you, like, so whenever you talk under the radar, does Renardo Green, like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I don't have him as an under-the-radar player because I think he's on everyone's radar as a guy that's going to step up and have a really big season. So, yeah, I didn't consider him. I think he's ready to roll. He's going to have a good year.
Yeah, my answer, okay, was Demarcus Robinson, which is kind of weird because he's going to be suspended early. I think the 49ers have a major need at wide receiver. And yeah, Debo's gone, which hurts big time, but Ayuk's out early too. Well, so is Demarcus Robinson. But I think this was my number 1 free agency signing that I liked the most because I thought it was a major need and you needed veteran leadership. I didn't want more rookies, wide receivers, because Shanahan hates rookie wide receivers and never plays them. Jacob Cowan gets a 50-yard catch, doesn't get targeted for 6 more weeks. Ricky Pearsall had to play because of all the injuries, but he paid out. But he was a first-round pick that didn't practice in the training camp preseason. Then the shooting incident or whatever, like it was awful. But man, you're banking on Ricky Pearsall being a guy. You're banking on Juwan Jennings to continue to be that number 1 guy. But I think that there is a lot of room for Demarcus Robinson, who was signed for not 1 but 2 years. I think that's huge in and of itself. And remember, Demarcus Robinson, in the 2 playoff games for the Rams, had more snaps, more targets, and more receiving yards than Cooper Kupp did. Like, he overtook that wide receiver 2 role when it mattered most for McVay going down the stretch. Now, we got to play against Cooper Kupp still because he signed that huge deal with the Seattle Seahawks, but you have the guy that was doing way more than him in the playoffs whenever it mattered most. I think that Demarcus Robinson, that signing, I think it's huge because it gives you a little bit of depth on a team and a roster that does not have depth. It sure as hell doesn't have veteran depth at many positions, but this is the one that's just like, all right, he's going to help us get through this Brandon Ayuk injury. And then this is the last year of Juwan Jennings. He's going to help us get through that whenever Juwan Jennings leaves next year. And I hate to tell you, everybody, I love Juwan Jennings. I wish he would stay with the 49ers forever. I don't think that's happening. You don't keep drafting all these wide receivers and do wide receiver 3 contracts. Juwan Jennings is going to get paid probably $23, $22 million a year for somebody. Remember, Darius Slayton got $15 million, which is stupid, but hey, get paid. The wide receiver position is bananas. So Demarcus Robinson, who's been kind of a career number 3 wide receiver, but man, he put up 7 touchdowns last year. 7. I think that he can go out there and have a 500, 600-yard season with 5 to 6 touchdowns and do his job and allow the 49ers to convert some third downs that perhaps they would not. So I think Demarcus Robinson is going to play a very, very key role. Just won't be in the first couple weeks.
Yeah, I like that pick because Demarcus Robinson really frees up Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall to play their normal roles because he's got the versatility to play all 3 of the wide receiver positions, which means you can move those guys around. Sometimes you can play Juwan at X. Sometimes you can move him to, Z, or he can play in the slot. And Demarcus Robinson is the consummate professional. He goes out there, he executes, he runs good routes, catches the football consistently. And last year alone, just what he did for the Rams and the way he was able to win and score touchdowns is something that the 49ers desperately need. Last year, one of the biggest weaknesses for the 49ers offense was red zone effectiveness. Adding a player that knows where to sit down, where to go, how to make tough catches, because he does make tough catches, that is something they needed to add to this offense. So I love that Demarcus Robinson pick from you because I do think that he's kind of flying under the radar, and a lot of it because people are trying to just kind of ignore him because of the impending suspension. But he's going to have a huge impact on this team whenever he's not suspended because Ayuk's going to be out until late November, early December, more than likely. Demarcus Robinson is going to play a lot of football games this year for the 49ers, and they need him, Juwan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall to really make big plays for Brock Purdy. We've already seen a little bit of that Brock Purdy chemistry with Demarcus Robinson down the field, and I think that's going to be huge. They need that from him.
Yeah, and Kawachipto says, hearing Robinson's suspension might be mid-year. The NFL is, pardon my French, batshit crazy when it comes to handling these issues. There is no projection. Now, if Demarcus Robinson's suspension is mid-season, that'd be a dream come true because you need him as an outside wide receiver until Ayuk gets back. Now, obviously, your 1-2, assuming everybody stays healthy, is Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. But the 49ers ran more 11 personnel last year under Shanahan than they have in all 8 years of Kyle Shanahan being here. So you have to have that third wide receiver. And I think what I would do personally is Juwan Jennings is your X, and then you put Ricky Pearsall on the Debo role at that Z role in 2 wide receiver sets. But whenever you go 11 personnel, Demarcus Robinson's outside. You kick Juwan Jennings into his kind of natural slot number 3 role and keep Ricky Pearsall at that Z. Like that's the way to go because Demarcus Robinson's he's an outside wide receiver if there ever was one. Now his top end speed's not the best anymore at his age. He's 30 plus, but man, he runs that dead leg outside plant move. That's his go-to, and it works. You look at yards per catch, he had 16.3 last year, which was top 30 in the NFL for all wide receivers. Like, he's an outside guy. And this roster, we talked to Isaiah Nair, we talked about Junior Bergen. You don't have a lot of outside wide receivers. You have a lot of Z's, and you have a lot of slots. So, Jordan Watkins, I know, he's an outside guy, but I love that we're hearing positives about him. I'm not trusting Jordan Watkins early on, which is where you need the help because Brandon Ayuk's injury. So I think Demarcus Robinson is just gigantic. He's my under-the-radar player. Yeah, I'm not saying draft him in fantasy football leagues or dynasty leagues, but I'm just saying he is a guy that will convert touchdowns in the red zone, like you talked about. He will help you on third downs. He does all the dirty work, and he just fits the culture kind of mold of a 49ers wide receiver that can go get the job. I don't think he's better than Ayuk or anything like that, but I'm pretty excited just that the 49ers have some flexibility to where you have 3 wide receivers. I'm a little worried about Pearsall and those hamstrings. Like, I'm just worried. it makes me a little bit less worried and able to sleep at night knowing Demarcus Robinson's on this team. It can play any spot. He can play X, he can play Z, he can play slot, and he's got the veteran backup trajectory to where it's like, man, you could trust this guy.
Yeah, I like that you can go find matchups too. I like this corner on this receiver. Let me go move these guys around. And when you have versatility of your wide receivers to kind of move them around and they can have success, I think that there's an opportunity for Robinson to have some really big time plays. But you had to have veterans as well. With Ayuk being out, you have Jennings. He's the veteran, but Ricky Pearsall's still a young guy. And having a key veteran that you can count on play in and play out was a key element to rebuilding this wide receiver room. You got to have some guys at the top that are still veterans that know how to do it, that can get the job done. And then you have some young guys who are developing, and that's where you get the nice mix of guys that can make plays. So I think Demarcus Robinson is going to make a huge impact on this team. I'm excited that they added him. I thought that was kind of an under-the-radar signing at the time. I think a lot of people were looking at more bigger names, so it flew under the radar, and it's flying under the radar now because of the impending suspension. But I think that he's gonna make plays, and people are going to be very excited about what he adds to this 49ers offense.
Yeah, I like that.